Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I know I've been MIA for a while and we are now in September. So thanks for coming back. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Christina and I am a genre bending literary writer. And here's where we talk about all things writing, publishing, creativity, and inspiration. So the last month has been kind of busy for me. I've been revising my novel. I started a new short story and then I started a second short story. And then I decided that I didn't have enough writing to do. So let me also write a creative nonfiction piece. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but to be honest with you, it's been really fun. If you're someone that wants to keep up with me on a more regular basis, I tend to write my newsletter pretty often, and I also have a blog channel, not a blog channel, a blog website. So those are always in the description box below, and there you can kind of get a little bit more um, regular updates from me. I'm so used to updating them now that rarely do I skip a time. But because I did not do a video in August, I have decided that I will do a video every week. So hopefully every Saturday or Sunday there will be a new video. And this one, but as you can tell from the title below, is called Submission September. That's right. We are in the time of year where everybody is open for submissions. For those of you who don't know, maybe you're new, maybe you're an indie author, or maybe you're somebody who just writes novels. If you are someone like me who actively writes essays and short stories, September is a very active month. Really, the whole fall is until up until probably about mid-November when things kind of slow down. And that's because a lot of literary journals are based around academic calendars. They're either part of a college or they are staffed by a lot of people who are doing internships or students. And just about every college or university has their own literary journal. So September, when the kids are coming back and they're starting up their classes and they're looking for part time jobs and all that stuff, that's when literary journals tend to get a lot of workers. Now, there's always someone who is probably staffed there, full time. But the people who are the readers, the people who are um, the folks who are learning how to do publishing, they tend to be students. So when September starts is most of the time when colleges are, they've already started maybe a week or two before that, and now they are back and they are looking for submissions. So I personally know of one place that is not attached to a college, but they pretty much took the summer off and they will be open back up in mid-September. So in preparation of that, I wrote my creative nonfiction piece, hoping that it gets in there. It's one of my dream publications. So we'll see how that goes. Um, so if you're somebody who is looking for your first publication, or maybe you've just been writing and you're ready to take the plunge, I would urge you now to start looking for places that you want to submit. Pay attention to their deadlines. If you really like, I don't know where to submit, I don't know where, the best thing to do is to go to your bookshelf or go to the library and look and see where your favorite writers for short stories, for essays, where they are getting published. And don't be afraid to submit there. I always say that, you want to swing for the fences. So submit to Tin House or McSweeney's or Granta or the Georgia Review or some of those places first. Why not? But also think about your local area. Here I live in Maryland, so places like the Baltimore Review is open, and oh, there's another place too that is big here in Maryland. Oh, Potomac Review. That's what it is, Potomac Review. Now, I mainly write sort of science fiction and fantasy, and those places don't really take those kinds of things. So they're not really markets that I pay attention to. But I know that in August, Abyss and Apex was open for like, I think like 7 days. So those are the kinds of places you want to pay attention to depending on what genre you're in. There is a website called the Submission Grinder. There's also Duotrope, and both of those are just big databases full of places. Poets and Writers also. If you go to poetsandwriters.org, I think it's a .org, but or it's .com. I can't remember which one. They have a database, and that is just everything, so the only problem I have with that database is that they don't break it down by type of writing. In other words, they don't have like a separate search for like horror or science fiction or fantasy. They mainly just do nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. So if you are one of those kinds of writers, Poets and Writers is a really great resource for you. It's a little overwhelming at first, but I would say that it's definitely something you want to get used to. There are a ton of places to get published, and many of them are open year round. But it seems to me, and maybe there are other writers who feel differently, but it seems to me that like fall is when everybody is open. Some places are open year round, some places are open in the spring, some are open summer, heck, some are open around Christmas time. But there seems to be fall when everybody's like, hello, remember us? Yeah, we're looking for stuff. So it's submission September. And if I were you, I would dust off those essays and dust off those short stories and start submitting. You never know what's going to happen, and you never know what's going to hit. I would say, though, if you've already submitted it to a publication, don't submit it again to the same publication. Even if they have a different editor or something, find a new place. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of places, if not thousands, um, of places to submit, more than most people realize. And yes, some of them pay, some of them don't. But at this point, if you're submitting short stories like I am, and you've already submitted them to the big dogs, now you just want to get it published. If you're someone who says, no, I only want to make, you know, $300 or more on every story that I publish, then don't dust it off. If you sent it to every place that pays what you want it to pay and it's been a rejection, move on to the next story. And you can always self-publish it, and that's what I did. Or you can wait till a new publication pops up. Excuse me, sorry. That's the other great thing is that, every year people are submitting to brand new places. There's always someone who says, you know what, I'm going to start a literary journal this year, or I'm going to break off from this literary journal and, start my own piece or whatever it happens to be. So there's always new places popping up. There's always anthologies that are looking for people to submit to, and even like regular trade magazines, not necessarily for fiction, but definitely for nonfiction. If you're a nonfiction writer, I just read a really interesting essay on Literary Hub about an author who also worked at a grocery store, and I thought that was great. It was so interesting and made me really appreciate that I have a 9 to 5 job too that has nothing to do with writing. And I don't have to worry about health insurance. I don't have to worry about things like saving for for my retirement and a 401k. My regular schmegular office job has all of that. But it's such a great job because, at the end of the day, I don't have to do any more work. So I can have in my case, it's 4 to 10 because I get off work at 4, and I can pretty much devote myself to all my writing stuff. And that's what I've been doing this past month. Also, there's been some dramas popping up, and I thought about doing a video about Audra Winter and the whole Age of Scorpius thing, but honestly, I've seen so many other people making videos on it, and I don't have really anything new to add. I did think that I wrote in Lindy Jung's comment section that I felt like Audra Winter is learning a very difficult lesson when it comes to creativity and the creative life. Not everybody's going to be your cheerleader, and not everybody's going to clap for you. But I also think, and I don't think that I wrote this, but I should have. I also think that a lot of readers learned a very valuable lesson. Sometimes the hype is not worth it. I clearly remember the late 90s when I bought into the hype and I bought The Celestine Prophecy. Yeah. Do you remember that book? Some of y'all weren't even born when that book came out. Be glad you didn't get around to reading it. I think I read the first chapter and I didn't know what the heck was going on. It was unreadable to me. And I had wanted to love it so much. I had, read the blurbs. It was right there front and center in B. Dalton, the B. Dalton I used to go to. And I couldn't finish it. I couldn't read it. It was in my opinion, it was unreadable. And I thought something was wrong with me. I was, you know, college educated and had read some difficult stuff, and I'm reading Virginia Woolf and I'm reading, Gabriela Garcia Marquez and all of these great writers. And I'm like, I know the English language, right? I I know subject, verb, adjective. Why can't I read this book? And yeah, it turns out that a lot of people felt the way that I did. And that book was just it was a mess. And what was hilarious was that for probably the next 10 years, whenever I went to used bookstores or I went to the thrift store in the book section, there would be a copy or two or five of that book. And I realized that a lot of people bought that book and it wasn't very good. It just wasn't. So I think as a reader, you need to start being a little bit more discerning and understand that sometimes the hype is hype, and it's not necessarily that it's a terrible book. It's just not a book for you. Now, in the case of Age of Scorpius, I didn't read it. I think I read maybe the first page, and um, I knew that book wasn't for me. But I hope that she keeps writing. I hope that she keeps improving. And I hope, if this is her dream, that she keeps pursuing it. I don't think that it's necessarily a terrible thing to have your first book be um be bad. I mean, you can only go up from there. And I know some people think she's scamming. I don't think she's scamming, but anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I just wanted to add my 2 cents about readers and hype and how that can really backfire. Oh, I would also say that this summer I did DNF a book that won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago and got beautiful praise. In fact, when I bought the book in the used bookstore, somebody said to me, "Oh, you're going to love that book. It's so good." Yeah, I think I read 50 pages and said, "No, this is not for me." And I promptly closed it and donated it to a little free library because that book was not for me. And again, bought the hype. Sometimes you just don't know, which is why I'm always a champion of buying things secondhand and getting them from libraries. Uh, there's no shame in just saying, you know what, I'm going to wait until the reviews come out for this book. I'm going to wait until, some time goes by because you're unsure, And of course I have my writers that I absolutely love, and I will buy everything that they put out as soon as it gets published. And um so a couple of those books were not the greatest books. They weren't terrible, but they weren't my favorites. But that's okay. They're my favorite writer, so I want to support them. And they're probably sitting on that bookshelf this way. And one day I'll get around to like reading the rest of them, but it's okay. Sometimes you buy into the hype, and sometimes it's it doesn't pay off. Yeah. Other times a book will surprise you and you'll think to yourself, "Ooh, why doesn't everybody else talk about this book? It's so good." I read The Bad Graft, which was in Orange World by Karen Russell. Now, I love Karen Russell. I read Swamplandia. I read Lucy's Home for Wayward Girls. And she has a new book that came out, I think this spring, but I haven't gotten that book yet. But I was in the library and I was like, you know what? I haven't read Orange World. Let me read it. And ooh, The Bad Graft was one of those stories that I read and I wish I had written that story. That's one of those stories that you read and you go, that is good. Like, blow me away good. That does not happen too much to me. But I read that story, and there are other stories in that collection that are very good too. But that one story, that caught me off guard because I was like, I don't know. This girl goes to Joshua Tree and what, spores invade her? I don't know. This sounds weird. It was weird, and it was good. It was good, satisfyingly good. And I know that um, there's plenty of people who have read stories like that caught you off guard. You didn't think you were going to like it, and then you read it and go, that satisfies me. Yeah. And it just reminded me how much I really like Karen Russell and how much I need to go out and get that book. So, aside from my reading habits this summer, we can talk a little bit about my writing because uh my second drafts always do the big heavy lifting. And rereading my novel, I realized that I had these two interludes that were about information that had already been talked about in the main body of the book. And so I realized I needed to take them out. And instead, I needed to slow my pacing down. So I'm adding two more chapters. In some ways, that's definitely needed. I feel with no uncertainty that this is definitely the way to go with this book. But on the other hand, that means I'm still drafting new words, which is something I didn't want to do. So, needless to say, today, September 1st, is the deadline for finishing my draft two, and it ain't done. I have started one of the new chapters, and I'd have no idea how long they're going to be, but I am drafting these new words. And I think that just goes to show you that some of us, we can write a novel in 2 to 3 months and revise it in 2 to 3 months, and in 6 months you have a book. And others of us, like myself, we take a while to work on stuff. Now, of course, I'm working on other short stories and other essays, but some of us, it takes a while. December 2025 will be 2 years since I first started writing this book. So I'm hoping by then that I will have this draft done. And realistically, I think I'll probably will need to go and do another draft because I'll have to work with my critique group, get it to them, and they'll have their thoughts and that kind of thing. So maybe spring 2026 is when I will be ready to, find a literary agent. I'd like to go traditional for this, but I'm not really putting limits. Right now, I'm just writing what I'm excited by and things that I want to share with the world. And these short stories that I'm writing, I'm really proud of those. I'm really proud of my essay too. And I really hope it gets into this publication in September. But if not, I will keep trying to put this essay, in other places. And yeah, and just keep working forward like that. I will say that I understand that for some people, this may seem really scatterbrained and they're like, you should just do one thing. But I spent 2 years just working on a novel and I didn't like it. I like this better. Maybe it's just me and my nature of, constantly wanting to start new things. I have plenty of half-finished stories I wrote and I never rewrote. But I don't know. I like the idea that one day I can work on this and one day I can work on something else and one day I can work on something else. And I don't get bored. I actually finish things and put them out into the world for submission. And I feel like I'm moving forward instead of being stuck working on one thing over and over and over again. And maybe that's just me, maybe some people have more focus than me, but since I work a day job and my day job is not very exciting, it's in records management. And I kind of do the same thing, day after day after day. And I'm okay with that. But in my creative life, I want to, work on this short story and maybe I'll work on this novel the next day. There's no timeline in me that says, okay, you need to have your novel done by this day or that day. Like, I don't really have that. Instead, I feel more like I'm going to work on what matters to me and I'm going to work on stuff that excites me, but I'm going to see it through to the end. And then I'll work on something else and I'm going to see that to the end. I think the fact that I actually finished my novel, I actually got to the end, it's huge. And that was back in March. And so now my goal is to make these words that I've written into something, one that is long enough to be considered a novel, because it was only 30,000 words when I finished it in March. But adding these new chapters will probably add quite a few more words. But so I'd like to get up to 60. That's my goal, to get up to 60,000 words. But I also want to make sure that I am paying attention to other parts of my creative life. And writing short stories is really important to me. Yes, there's not as much money as there is in um, novel writing. But at this point in my career, I can't really worry about that. I have to write the things that matter to me. If I was maybe younger, I would, maybe be more gung ho about novels. But right now, I'm just kind of like, I just want to write and I just want to get stuff published. And whether that's an essay or a short story or an article or just my blog posts, and speaking of blog posts slash newsletters, I have been very good about putting those out there, but I have been terrible about uploading my previously published stuff to Substack. And I need to get on that. So there may be some videos coming in September where I at least put a couple of things up because it's not like it's extra work. I just have to format it and put it up there. What's holding me up is the pictures. You always need to have some kind of, you know, visual stuff when you put things up on your blog posts because it makes it more interesting, makes the text more interesting, and it looks good in the emails that go out. So I need to be on Canva and get creative. Um, and then I need to do some book covers for my ebooks for those two short stories that came out last year. So I have a little bit of work to do besides writing, and I've been very lazy about that. But that's just because I prefer to write. It's not that I don't like to do, things like videos and the visual stuff, but I just love writing. And so when I come home from work, I'm kind of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to work on Canva or do you want to write? I want to write. And so if that means that some of these things just fall by the wayside for a while, they're going to fall by the wayside for a while. But I don't really want to drop the ball. And I do have a planner. I bought a planner from Aldi, and I'm going to attempt to put myself on some kind of schedule so that I can get all these things done in September. Um, I usually don't. I usually just kind of wing it. And well, I shouldn't say that. I do have a general schedule. The 1st and the 15th are supposed to be when blog posts go out. But now I think I'm going to start scheduling every day so that I make sure that I get this stuff done. Because I do want to get back on top of videos and I do want to get on top of, putting out the short stories on Amazon and Substack. It's just writing's more fun. The writing's more fun. All the other stuff is kind of like work. Some of you all know what I mean. Some of you all are feeling my pain. And listen, if I could hire somebody, I would, but your girl is broke. Okay. Records management is not, you know, it's not one of those high paying careers. It's very good for having a secondary career, but a first year. Plus, have you been paying attention to the US? I mean, these tariffs are crazy, crazy, and everything is just going up in price. But I don't want to bum people out. I'm doing okay. We're making it. And, hopefully, maybe things will get a little bit easier as time goes on. But yeah, that's where I'm at. It's submission September. Dust off your stories, your essays, and heck, even if you wrote a novel and you've been meaning to start sending it out to literary agents or small presses, or just putting it out there self publishing, now's the time. And if you don't have anything, start planning. If you've had that project in the back of your mind, we're about to go into cozy season. It's about to get darker a lot earlier. You don't want to be out in the world. You want to be home creating. Okay, join us. All right, I think that's everything. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you all on the next video. Bye.